Welcome to the Money to Meaning podcast, where we explore ways to bridge the gap between money and our heart's desires. I'm your hostess, Amy Adler. Today, I have with me Sharon Hudson. She is a divorce coach and also a teacher of Heartmath and Qi Gong, among other areas of expertise that she has all kinds of talents. She's also a single mom, just like me, and works with both kids and adults, depending on the topic. I met Sharon in the Cosmic Mastermind group that I joined. It was a 6-month long program that was intended to help entrepreneurs collaborate and support each other, spiritual entrepreneurs in particular. And Sharon was one of the facilitators of the group, and we knew right away that we needed to work together as soon as we connected in that group. And I think that the co parenting planning guide that we've created together, that will be available very soon, is a really great resource that can be beneficial for anyone who has children, who is considering or going through the process of divorce or splitting up with their partner who is also their co parent. I just adore Sharon's calming and kind presence, and I'm really excited to have you with us today. So, welcome, Sharon.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah,
I meant every word.
I'm so happy to be here and I'm flattered that you invited me on this amazing podcast.
Well, it's been so fun for us to work together building this co parenting planning guide that I knew we would have a great time doing this today too. And I wanted to share your brilliance with the rest of the world and my audience, just
Thank
like
you.
all the other people who've had such a big, powerful influence in my life.
Yeah.
So, to get started, can you just share a little bit with the audience about your background and the different services that you offer to clients who are going through divorce and maybe some of the other spaces that you dip your toes into and share your
Yeah.
gifts?
Yeah, definitely. My background with my career started out as a middle school science teacher. I've also done a little bit of working with children with autism. I did a year of ABA assisting with those kids on the spectrum, which was really enlightening and insightful. But my main about 8 or 9 years, I was a middle school science teacher, and I love teaching about animals, nature, and that kind of stuff. I was noticing that the kids were missing something. It was just they would come to me and they'd have friend drama they needed help with. They were crying about something or angry about something. They were losing their confidence because they weren't, making good grades, or, if they weren't making average on the state exam. It was just, I would see their confidence level drop. And I just felt like there was more that they needed. And of course, counselors come in and talk about bullying and talk about confidence, here and there throughout the year, but that just wasn't helping them. And kids just don't really, like schools bring in somebody to talk about bullying and there's like a big seminar or whatever, or about confidence or something, and maybe a few kids will listen and hear it and get something from it, but as a group, kids don't want to listen. It's not cool to listen to that stuff. It's not cool to get into it and like be like, oh yeah, so one-on-one or small classes work better, especially with middle school ages. So I had this idea of, what, I just my background, I have a psychology degree, and I thought I would be a psychologist at some point. Um, but I was like, I don't want to be a therapist. I feel like these kids just need a coach. They need someone to help them by teaching them the tools of how to deal with normal life, because life is up and down. And so I took a leap of faith and I quit my teaching job and I started a life coaching business. I started with summer camps and teaching kids emotional management tools and tools to help them increase their confidence. And I was one of the few that were doing it back then. This was 8 years ago. Now there's a lot more kids life coaches out there, which is really good because the world needs more. So it was nice to be a part of that beginning of a new kind of career. And since then, I've gotten divorced, and that was a big challenge for me. And I wanted to help other women going through that. So I started doing some divorce coaching here and there. I've led a few divorce coaching classes that were really helpful to women that really needed that support at that time. I've also gotten into teaching Heartmath, which is teaching people to connect the heart and mind and really live in that heart space more, letting the heart lead more than the mind. So it's a lot of meditations. And then I've recently started getting my teaching certificate in Qi Gong, which is my current passion that I just love, love, love. So yeah, and here I am. So most of my work is with kids, I would say. Like 70% of my work is teaching kids and in group classes and in private sessions, helping them increase confidence and work with their emotions and letting their emotions work for them and not being controlled by the emotions.
Such a variety of skills you have that you share with so many different groups of people. I just love that. So, you mentioned that you got divorced. Can you share a little bit about your divorce story and how you came to thrive after it was all behind you?
Yeah, so I mean, like anyone that gets divorced, you never really plan on it. I never think, oh, that's going to happen in my life one day. But as I turned 40, I knew there was something changing. I wanted more. I didn't want to just husband with the label. I wanted an actual relationship. I wanted to be able to show my daughter what a loving relationship is. And so as this was stirring in me and I was realizing, my husband at the time just wasn't fulfilling what I needed. I wasn't supportive. It just didn't feel like a loving relationship. And it was like, can I live like this the rest of my life? And do I want my daughter to see me in an unfulfilled, unhappy relationship, even if it is with her father? I really, uh, deep down, I know that kids want to see their parents happy. And I know they don't want their parents to separate, but deep down, they desire to see their parents happy. And that's something that I always wanted for my parents. When they went through struggles in their marriage, I wanted just like, if you need to separate, just separate. I just want them to be happy. And so that was my guiding forces for my kid, even though, a lot of people decide to stay for their kids. I was like, no, I don't want my daughter to be around this unhappiness amongst us and just her parents living as roommates. So I decided to leave, and it was such a challenging situation, as every divorce is. Um, it's been 6 years, 7 or 6 years now, and it's so nice to be on the other side of it. To be in a place where, oh wow, I took a leap of I took a leap of faith for my own well-being, and me doing that actually helped everyone around me, which is hard to see when you're in the midst of that and everybody's in pain and mad and hurt. But in the end, looking around now, it's like everybody is actually in a good place. So,
I completely agree. Did you have any fears or concerns about how you were going to support yourself after divorce when you were going through it?
yes. I actually, and I know that's a thing that keeps women in marriages, or even the man in a marriage, if he's being supported by the mother. But I I wasn't, at that time I had already started my coaching job and I wasn't doing it full time. So that was a concern, but I was very fortunate to have my parents that had a house within 5 minutes of where we lived. And so I just moved in with them for 2.5 years. So I didn't live on my own for those time. And I'm happy that I didn't. I'm happy I had that support, because I can't even imagine dealing with the grief and pain of a marriage ending while trying to make money. And I know that so many women and men have to do that while they're still healing, have to work, 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 and it's hard. But I remember when I was, alone, and like, my daughter's with her dad and I'm by myself and I'm dealing with this pain of a separation. I remember thinking, I would walk into a doctor's office or a store and be like, I just want to work here. I just wanted to be around people again and feel that connection with people. And so I would have if I had the freedom to just do whatever job, I would have just worked at a store or a restaurant or whatever just to get out and keep myself occupied. But what I ended up doing is I got a part-time job at a private school in off of UT campus, which was an amazing experience. It was called Kirby Hall. And so I worked part-time there, and I did my coaching on the side. And so I started saving money while I was living with my parents and eventually was able to move out in 2020. I was able to rent a home on my own, which felt really good. But it's not, it's still not always easy. It's still some days, some months I'm doing really well and some I'm not. So it's still an up and down. And it's just learning how to trust that it'll all work out is the biggest lesson for me. Trusting that the money will come, the money will flow when it needs to, and I'll always be taken care of.
That right there is probably the quintessential, most valuable lesson message that we can all, if we can embody that when we're going through all of these hard times, whether it's recession or divorce or whatever that is
Yeah.
causing anxiety around the finances, like suddenly the whole world looks very different. It's not, it is scary. It's really hard. I'm still in that growth process myself, even though I've been a successful entrepreneur for a few years now and have never been in a financial situation where I don't have a steady income.
Hmm.
I still have been afraid that I won't have the money to pay for the mortgage payment or whatever my kids need.
Hmm.
Now they're college age and there's just they're expensive. So I
Yeah.
know that a lot of my divorcing clients and a lot of my community, and really just most of the world, we all have some level of stress about money that I wish we could all let go of. And I think that's really a lot of why I decided to start this podcast, was to really help people find hope and try learning more skills to embody that message that you just said. So thank
Yeah,
you for
I
saying
think
that.
that's amazing, Amy. Seriously, thank you. Because it's
I'm
important that
learning right along with everyone, you know?
yeah, like it's important that we keep putting that message out because that's what brings us out. So we're feeling this high vibe of, oh yeah, money is just energy. Um, the money is going to come to me when I need it. I just have to trust and have faith. And we can get into that space, but then we go out into the world where there's other people that are like, no, oh my gosh, I can't spend this money and I'm not going to make, I'm not going to make my payment and I have all this debt. And so then that can bring us down if we're not careful, if we're not protecting ourselves. And so the more we're having these kind of conversations, the more we can all just tap into this energy and live it as much as we can. We're always
Yeah.
going to have these downfalls, right? Where things happen and we're like, oh gosh, I'm having some low vibe, money energy going on here. And what I like to do whenever I get in that space of, oh gosh, I got to pay the bill. Am I going to have enough money to do that? Is I start tapping it out, doing the EFT tapping and talking to myself
That's
out
the
of that
emotional
money.
freedom technique,
Yeah,
right?
that always helps me. It really does. It's just like the talking and the tapping, it's just something magical happening while I'm moving myself from a low vibe thought to a high vibe, trusting, having the faith. It's just amazing how it works.
Yeah, and what you just described is the EFT. I'm actually learning a lot right now. I'm super interested in learning about the vagus nerve and how all of that works, because it controls our ability to resist or calm down from anxiety. And
Yeah,
so, what I've noticed about EFT is that it's like targeting the areas in the body that can help to activate the vagus nerve. So
yeah,
there's like physical scientific connection
yeah,
there, but there's also this energetic spiritual side of it as well, that we're tapping into by literally tapping into by tapping
yeah,
our bodies in certain
yeah.
energetic places. So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And the more you believe in it, the more it works.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that we're having this conversation because the timing is perfect. That I had just had this idea, and I think I posted it on Facebook a few days ago about. I mean, it just popped into my head all of a sudden that the exchange of money is actually an expression of gratitude. And
Yes.
interestingly enough, my dad commented. He commented on the post. Well, if that's true, then how come the person giving the money doesn't get to decide how much, and so it really kind of sparked some interesting thoughts and conversation, I think, but also really just solidified the idea in my mind that when I pay my bills, I need to be in that emotional state of gratitude for the fact that I have the money to pay these bills and to have these things that I'm exchanging money for. Like
Yes.
today is in particular, it is snowing in Austin, Texas, which happens like maybe once a year, once every other year.
Yeah.
And it's really cold, and I'm paying the gas bill and very thankful that I have heat in my house. And so if we
Hmm.
can change our mindset around the money exchange and what we're feeling when we pay the bill to an expression of gratitude, then that
Yes.
sets us up for that higher vibration state that allows us to bring in more money for the things that we need and
Yes.
even for the things that we want.
Yeah, I totally agree because we tend to look at, and I've been there. I would say a year or two ago, I would totally dread having to pay my credit card. The bills that come out of my bank account automatically, so I don't pay attention to those as much. But the credit card, okay, I got to sit down and look at, and oh my gosh, I spent a lot of money this month, and it would be just like a dreaded feeling, right? But the last year and a half, I've really tried to be conscious of what I'm doing. Okay, it's time to pay my credit card, so I'm going to make this into a ceremony. One time I even lit a candle and I meditated and I got into this space of, I trust everything's going to be okay. And I would pay my bills and I would think, I'm so happy that I have this credit card to to pay for things, and then now I'm going to use this money, to pay back the credit card. And like it's like, wow, this is amazing how it works. And just making it into a ceremony of gratitude, so it's like a conscious thing and you're not just doing it and feeling that dread in the back of your heart, the back of your throat, just like I
Yeah,
agree with that totally. I feel like that is so helpful for me.
I love that. I love the idea of making a ceremony out of it. I'm not as ritual centered, mostly because of my own like past traumas
Uh-huh.
around religious experience.
I
But
get
but I
it.
totally understand the value that a lot of people can get out of doing rituals like that.
Mhm.
For me, it's just in a moment. Like I remember every time I pay the mortgage bill every month that, and it does auto draft out of my bank account, but I see that happen. And then I think, wow, I am so fortunate that a mortgage company was willing to buy my house for me so that I could have a place to live with my children before I actually had the money to buy it outright. So here
Yeah.
I am, I've been in this house that I'm in right now. It's huge, 3,100 square feet. I've been here for 6 years with my children. And I was able to do that even though I didn't have the cash to buy the whole thing up front because this mortgage company gave me this opportunity. And yes, the system is broken. Yes, the interest rates are really high and we end up paying a lot more. But that's not the point in the moment of paying the mortgage because
Right.
it's already there and it is what it is. We did what we did for a reason, and this is our expression of gratitude for having that option available to us and for
Yes.
being able to take it. So
Totally. Yeah, I love that.
really it's really helpful. I found that it really released a lot of my resentment towards money. And I mean, money has definitely been an issue generationally in my world. Like going back, my mom grew up really poor and she had a lot of resentment around that too. And so was kind of a bigger spender growing up. Became when she became an adult, which led to some resentment on my part for not having the money in my family growing up for the things that I needed or wanted because my mom was spending a lot more money than they really had available for that kind of stuff, discretionary stuff. So
Yeah.
that's why I think I'm in this career, this finance career, because this is the time to end the generational traumas and the resentment and the fear. It is time to enjoy life and be grateful for all of the things that we have, whether they're going the way that we want them to or not. We're still here, we're safe, we have what we need, and that's enough to be thankful for in this
I
moment.
love it. Yes, totally. I love it.
Yeah. So you are actually one of the first people that I've connected with who has as much interest and excitement in learning about tools like human design and how it applies to you and other people in your life. So I want to talk about that a little bit more here on this podcast. Most people are familiar with systems like Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or like disc personality profiles because that's more the contemporary in the last 30 years. Those have been the options that we have to really understand the inner workings of a person. But human design is so different from any other tool that we've ever used, especially in Western society.
Yes.
So, and I know that this is an area that you have a little more expertise than I do. So, I would love it if you can explain to the audience briefly just what is human design and how do you use it in your work?
Okay. Human design is a modality that is similar to astrology. It's actually based in astrology. It's based in ancient Chinese, like I Ching and Kabbalah and the chakras. So it's a combination of a lot of ancient modalities, but it's a more modern version of all that. Um, all of how it came about and how it works with all those different modalities is not an interest to me because that gets too confusing. But how it works now in my life and how it helps me see other people and their energy types and how I can relate to them is what matters to me. So there are different energy types in human design, just like there's different signs in astrology. And there's the manifester and the projector and the reflector types that are not built-in energy. So these people don't have a built-in energy system that can help them go, 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 go. And then there's the manifesting generators and the generators that have that built-in energy system, like you. But they're, again, I know you can say like, oh yeah, I have this built-in energy system, but there are sometimes you're not going to be able to go, go, go. I mean, it's just like human nature. But
When we don't ever stop, yes.
yeah. But the manifester me, I don't have that built-in energy system. So how it's helped me to know my energy type when I figured out what I was is it validated some insecurities I had as actually not being, it helped me see them as not insecurities or not negative. So growing up and like all through college and when I got my graduate degree in education, like I felt like a lazy person. Like I just wanted to be a student. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to work and go to school. Like it was really hard for me to go to college and work at the same time, so I never did. I would work in the summers and, Christmas break. But I look at these people today and the college and working, it's just like I can't even imagine doing that. And I had friends that did that, and I just couldn't imagine having the energy to do that. It wasn't even something I could contemplate because it felt so hard. But now I know as a manifester, I'm not built for that kind of life where I'm working and going to school. So I need to take breaks. And it's not that I'm lazy, like I would call myself like, gosh, I'm just so lazy, or I'm not able to work. Like, what's my problem? It's not a bad thing. In our world, it's seen as a bad thing, but I'm actually made that way. I'm made to be an initiator and to like start things, start the fires, but I'm not made to keep the fires going. And that makes total sense to me when I think about my whole life. And so it gave me so much validation to see myself as this unique individual, and what I'm supposed to give to the world is not what the world is expecting of me. And so I don't have to live to those society expectations of working the 9 to 6 job. Um, and also in human design, there's the authority type that you have, which really helps you know how to make decisions in your life. So like, are you emotional or sacral authority?
Sacral. Mhm.
Yeah. So your sacral authority is more of a, you ask yourself a question, is this situation right for me? And you get that guttural yes or no right away, that tells you how to make a decision. And also, responding to others that are initiating to you is important for you. For me, I have to wait for my emotions to calm down because I'm emotional authority, and so I'm an up and down emotion. And so I can't make decisions when I'm super excited and I can't make decisions when I'm super sad. I really need to make a decision when I'm balanced, which I think that goes for everyone, but
Mhm.
um you kind of take in like, okay, like say like you're super excited about something and you're feeling the gut of yes, yes, yes. That's your take on it. Like you should do it, right? But if I'm super excited about something, I don't really have that gut instinct coming in. I'm just feeling good. I still need to wait to make a decision. So my way of making decisions is I need to remember when people ask me, "Do you want to do this?" Like when you asked me to do this podcast, it was an immediate yes. But ideally, I should have said, "Oh, let me think about that." And I would have come back and said yes anyway. But just learning how to live like that really, really helps me in life. And just to know what other people's authorities are and how they're supposed to act in the world really helps me accept them and relate to them. So it's been a life changer in my life for sure.
I love that. Um, just to share a little bit of it. Oh, you know what? I probably should explain a little bit before I share the story. What's interesting about human design is, and makes it very different from all those other tests that I mentioned before, is that there's not a series of questions that you have to answer about
Right.
how you are. Like it is based on your birth date and the time and location.
Hmm.
So it is entirely written in the stars, for lack of
Right.
better words. It is really, it requires a real belief that this is a system that is created to connect us, these living,
Hmm.
breathing, earthling creatures,
Yes.
to the world that we cannot see, touch,
Hmm.
hear, taste, or most of us can't
Right.
connect to that as obviously. And so in the world of finance, it has been incredibly difficult to get people on board with believing in this. But the key has been there's no denying its accuracy. So when I present this information, I'm more of a numerology person than a human design in terms of my level of knowledge and expertise. I love human design and I'm learning a lot about it every day, but my background is more in numerology. Regardless, they're all similar systems that are just using a little different, slightly different modality. Um, so when I present these systems to people, all I do is a workup on that person, on that adult, and give them information about what their human design or their numerology or whatever says about them. And immediately the light bulb goes off. And I get the same reaction every single time. I've done this with clients, I've done it with friends. I use human design and numerology in my business. None of my clients know about it at the time, but if I have the information to be able to run it myself behind the scenes, I will. And it just helps me so much know how to work with them and know what it is that's underlying the things that they're saying. So I can be a better mediator. I can help both spouses negotiate their settlements much easier and such by using this information,
Oh my
which
gosh, that is
is my goal, is to help merge these two worlds, because it is so powerful to know this about ourselves. And the story that I wanted to share is I had a colleague who attended a training that I offered, and the training was related to bringing human design into the space of finance. And this particular colleague is a financial planner. So her job is to invest people's money on their behalf, right? And help them grow and save for retirement. She has two children of her own who are young adults in their early 20s. And so when I introduced the concept of human design to her, she was like, what? I don't understand. Why are you bringing this up in our financial training? And so I said, well, let's look up yours and one of your children's human design. And so that night after our training course was over, I get this like whole slew of texts from her. Oh my gosh, my daughter is a blah, blah, blah. And this explains so much about why she struggled in school and why she's so depressed right now. And all of this stuff. She was just blown away by how much
Yeah.
supporting information she got about her child that just made her feel so much better and less anxious about her child's future and about how she was going to be able to cope with some of the challenges and all of the stuff. It was so
Wow.
beautiful and exciting to me to see this, like the light bulb go on. And
Yes.
that's what
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
is,
I think that's amazing that you're incorporating that, especially in mediating between spouses that are parting. Oh my gosh, that would be so valuable. Wow.
yes, I want more of this to be integrated into business, into finance and business in general. It seems like a no-brainer to me that we used to
Yeah.
say, what are your Myers-Briggs letters? Now it's what's your
Yeah.
human design, right?
Yeah.
So that we
And
can.
like you were saying, those other modalities, I've never really gotten into them because it's asking questions and it's like we don't really know exactly because a lot of it's depending on different situations. And I'm like, well, I can answer a lot of things on this, you know, question. So I've never really gotten into those systems, but um, I've had clients, usually now I'll ask my adult clients um, in a pre-questionnaire, have you heard of human design? Are you willing for me to look up your human design and we could use it in the coaching because it really does help me guide them better. If I don't know their design, then I'm kind of just generalizing, and it could be so much a better experience if I do know that, they're not meant to um, be a generator, like the world is wanting them to be. And, this is how they are supposed to respond to people. So it's so much more helpful. There's some people that just aren't open to it, and so I have to just go with it. And some people are, they're like, oh yeah, sure. But they don't, they'll like, oh yeah, that is me, but they kind of leave it there. So, and everybody's on their own journey and how they're going to accept it. But, when we bring it up to people and they don't know what it is, that's how we spread the knowledge. Either they're going to take it in and use it, or they're going to end their interest right there. Can't
Right,
control that.
because I mean it's not for us to try to convince them, and we don't
Right.
really need to, because the information that's provided speaks for itself. There's
Right.
like no
Yeah.
denying this truth of the accuracy of the information that comes out
Yeah.
of it. So yeah,
Totally.
and I think more and more people are becoming aware of these new modality or new, they're old modalities,
Hmm.
but new to Western
Yeah.
tradition and life. And people are really starting to wake up to the reality that this life on earth is not at all what it seems to us,
Right.
that we were born into, so much unknown that really is actually known if we
Yeah.
just allow it.
Totally. Yes.
I think it's a scary big role for me to play. But I think that's why I'm here, is to
Yeah.
be bridging those two together, in the
Yes.
world of finance and personal family finance specifically. So
Yeah.
I love that you're also into Qigong. Like, I had really actually not heard much about it before I came into connection with you. I mean, I'd heard it before here and there. I've seen classes or whatever,
Hmm.
but I just saw people like, and Tai Chi as well. I would see people just moving really slowly. And I was like, oh, this is for old people. I don't need this.
Yeah.
But exercise has been super important to me for a very long time. And so the concept of moving the body and understanding the energy that's moving along with the body seems really interesting to me. So can you tell us about how you got into it and how you use it in your life?
Yeah, like you, I Qigong was just a word passing I didn't know much about. The Tai Chi is a form of Qigong, and that's the more popular version of it that you would see, older people at parks and stuff doing
Yeah,
Tai
exactly.
Chi. Yeah, and so it came into my life in 2021. I I host a podcast, Soul Quest, which you're going to be on tomorrow, with my love. And I was looking for people like Austin entrepreneurs. And so I was on a Facebook group, Austin entrepreneurs or something. And I was like, I'm looking for people that would want to share their journey with us. And this woman, Diana Lane, um, Diane Lane or Diana Lane, it's not the one that's famous. Diana Lane, I think. Diana Lane, she's an acupuncturist here in Austin. And she said, I would love to be on your podcast. And I looked her up and I was like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I want on the podcast. And um, so she came on. Well, before she got on the podcast, I noticed she was teaching a class at a yoga studio in North Central Austin. And it was called like Taoist Internal Alchemy Qigong or something. I was like, this sounds amazing. I'm going to go to her class and meet her. And I took her class, and it was just a light bulb. Like my heart was just like glowing this big. I said, this is amazing stuff here. Like I felt better than I had felt ever. Like with yoga has never made me feel this way. Just
Mhm.
normal meditation has never made me feel the way I felt after that class. And I was hooked. And so I think I went to a few more of her classes, and I started going to Qigong classes at that yoga studio, which I can't remember the name of it, but they have yoga every Sunday at 12, I believe. I haven't been in a while. Um, and then I started following Marissa Cranfill of Yochi on YouTube, who's an absolutely amazing teacher as well. And so I've been training under her for the last year. And it's just changed my life. Like human design and Qigong have changed my life. Heartmath, I am a Heartmath coach. It's not as life changing because a lot of it is just kind of common sense, and most of it comes from ancient knowledge anyway, even though it's scientifically proven through heart math research. It's all coming from ancient stuff. Um, so yeah, Qigong is like it's a mixture. So it's ancient Chinese moving meditation basically that's used for healing the body. It's based in Taoism. This is ancient Chinese philosophy, and 5,000 years ago they already knew the heart was important before, Western medicine did. The heart is more than just a blood pump. It's where we feel our emotions. It's our emotional center, and we get a lot of our intuition from there. But all of the organs, they're more than just these physical things. Like they're this energy that we can connect with. We can smile and be grateful for the spleen and the kidneys and all that they do, and just moving energy with actually moving the physical body, but also with intention. You're moving the chi, which is the energy, the life force energy, through your body to clear out stagnation, which eventually causes physical illness. If we don't clear it out. There's tapping involved as well, tapping on the acupressure points, and sound vibration is a really big thing in qigong. So it's a mixture of movement, intention, meditation, tapping, and sound vibrations. It's such a healing, energizing feeling when you're done doing whatever form of qigong you're doing. There's medical qigong, there's spiritual qigong. I do a mixture of both. Amazing stuff.
So every time I see you, I'm always blown away by how zen you come across. Is this your secret?
It is. I believe when I don't have time to do qigong, I am off balance for sure. Um, but I really feel like my Zen, I mean, hey, I'm not Zen all the time, believe me. I told you this dog that's come into my life has really pushed my triggers. And so I realized that this time of my life, I need some triggers pushed because my life is pretty easy. I don't get angry. There's really nothing around me to get angry about. Um, so he's barking now
Yep.
as I talk about him.
Yep.
He's really come into my life to heal some um, deep anger. I think that maybe needs to be healed. And as a manifester, that is my not self-famous anger. So manifestors do have anger to deal with. Um, so, you know, my Zen part of me has been challenged in the last couple months, and I've really been aware of that. And so I'm really trying to get myself back to realizing that Zen feeling. And so I go to Qigong. I do whatever I need to do, but my daily practice, I think, is in the morning. I have like a tea ceremony. Lately, I've been doing cacao, and I talk to myself while I'm drinking my tea. How grateful I am, things I'm grateful for, and I talk to source, divine source, and I ask for assistance with the things I need assistance with. Like can you please help me be patient with my dog? Can you please um, help me bring in new clients? Whatever it is I'm needing help with, I talk to source while I'm drinking my tea or my cacao, and then I'll do some qigong, and it just energizes me for the day. But the main thing, I think, besides all of that, is having a positive perspective, and trusting the flow of life is really important. And I've lived like that most of my life. I've been a more positive person. Um, I come across my parents who are like, "Oh, are you sure?" They put that fear in me about things. Like when I went to Mexico last year, they're like, "I don't know if you should go to Mexico. What happens to people there? You might be kidnapped and blah blah blah." And I started to feel that fear, and I was like, "No, no, no, no. I'm not gonna let that fear keep me from enjoying life." And so I turned my perspective back to positive and to joy, living, seeing life through joy. And so that attracts the right people to me, attracts you to me, attract Diana, like all my lovely friends that I have that are more on the positive, trusting divine source pathway come to me because I've chosen to have that perspective and I've chosen to live that way. And so I guess it all starts with that choice of having that positive perspective and that trust in the universe and divine source and God, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
that thing that connects us all.
So, what other ways do you bring spiritual concepts to your work and your daily life? Are there other things that you do that might be helpful for people to know about?
um, I think what's it's always been about journaling, and lately it's been for me about talking out loud, like instead of in my mind saying it out loud, you know, and asking for assistance. Um, and just, sometimes when I'm driving, that's driving in traffic or driving in like bad weather is when I tend to feel the most anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, I will catch myself. So becoming aware of my vibration lowering, and I will start doing a heart focused breathing, which is a Heartmath technique, breathing in and out of the heart. But that's not just a Heartmath technique. It goes back, ancient wisdom. So um, breathing in and out of the heart to put focus on the heart, relaxed focus. And then I will imagine shining that, radiating that heart love from my heart to all the drivers around me. It helps so much. And just feeling like I'm making a difference while I'm driving instead of feeling like I'm suffering while I'm driving is something I like to put into my day. It helps a lot.
Do you have long commutes because you're living out there in Booney Land?
Yes. Yes, I drive to Lakeway at least once a week, sometimes twice a week to pick up my daughter. Um, and I help her dad out by meeting him sometimes instead of him coming out here. So I do drive a lot on 71 into Austin, which is not a fun drive. And so if there's traffic, I try to really center myself and not feel the resistance of, because man, traffic can make us crazy if we let it.
It can, yes, but full disclosure, personal here, the car is actually one of the two best places for me to have these conversations with my spirit team and to be expressing my gratitude and focusing on things because I'm not really able to think about or do much other than drive.
Hmm.
So I think the focus is easier, maybe, but also just being in motion and in movement, like, is good for me personally to be able to have that
Yeah,
connection, communication with the other side. So I'm always talking to my
yeah,
angels and my spirit team in the car, because especially when it's just me in the car, like that's a great time to
yeah.
say
You're,
whatever I need to say and not have to worry about anybody else hearing me and judging me. So
yeah. I feel like there's so much synchronicity that happens whenever we have a conversation because as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I've had some amazing, like in the last couple of months, I've had some amazing spiritual experiences in the car. Like when I was serene and there wasn't anything triggering me, I've had some situations where I felt a connection with my grandmother all of a sudden. I don't even know, I can't even explain the situation anymore because it's been a month and it's already passed. But the other day, I was driving to Lakeway and I was listening to this podcast that somebody I listen to Ann Tucker, who's an angel channeler a lot. And in the Facebook group, people are always sharing other people's YouTube, like channelers and stuff. And I found this woman, Sarah Shook, and I was listening to her podcast and she was describing, do you know her?
I listen to her stuff too. Yeah, I love her.
Okay.
She's
She was
adorable.
talking about the rainbow grid. Uh,
Uh-huh.
when I was leaving the house, this is the great thing about leaving in the dark when the sun's rising is the winter sky is just so beautiful when the sun's rising and when it's setting, it's just so pink and purple. And I was looking at it and like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And the other day with the full moon, I had a full vision of the full moon all the ride into Austin. It was just amazing. But I was looking, I was like, man, the sky just seems to be getting more colorful the older I get. Or am I just noticing it more? I don't know. So I was listening to her podcast and she was talking about how she was seeing that we're going to be seeing more colors in the sky
Nope.
right after I was thinking that. And right before she started talking about a rainbow, I saw like a slash of a rainbow. It wasn't like a full rainbow, it was just a slash of a rainbow, which I've never seen early in the morning as the sun's rising. I've never seen that. It was like a I was like, what is happening? Like I saw that and then she started talking about a rainbow grid that is going to be surrounding us. And I was like, what? I was like, this is so amazing. I was like, called my boyfriend and I told him on his voicemail because he didn't answer. I was like, I gotta tell somebody what just happened. So I totally can relate to the car experiences. And I remember when I used to commute a lot more because my boyfriend lives in Houston. From Houston to Austin, I'd do early morning drives. Like I'd leave at 5 in the morning and I'd always start having these like downloads of like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. As I would be driving on that like long drive where there's not a bunch of traffic, I would get really connected. Or like in the openness of 71 between I-10 and Bastrop where it's really nice. I would get all these downloads. So I appreciate you bringing that up because it's so true. And maybe other people haven't noticed that yet, or maybe they have and really haven't thought about it. So it's really good that we're talking about that. There's something there.
Yes. Another quick but kind of interesting, funny story that I think speaks to what just happened between us. That I feel more compelled to start just authentically speaking about these experiences that I have because it's giving more people permission to
Yeah.
speak and to validate and to speak about their own. I was testifying in a trial a couple of weeks ago, and there was only one other witness in the trial, and we both had to sit outside the courtroom and wait until we were called. So we pretty much spent the whole day sitting outside the courtroom together. We were chit chatting, and it was usually about business, right? Because the whole reason I was there was to testify for a divorcing client who needed my expertise on the stand to talk about something financial related for his divorce. And the other person sitting there was a real estate agent, so also there for business reasons, representing her client, who was also my client. And so by the end of the day, we were there for like 8 hours. We were sitting there. It took a long time before they were ready for us to testify. And by the end of the day, I said something to her about how I had been seeing a wild amount of repeating digits on license plates, on like games that I play on my phone, on numbers when I'm doing my work, like financial numbers for people, all the clock, all over the place, all the time. And when I did, her eyes got so wide and she was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell you this story. And then she went on to tell me this whole very personal story about a conversation that she'd had with a couple of other people who had names, their first names in this group in a random bar or something that she was in, their first names all were the first, middle, and last name of someone very close to her who had recently passed away that she was thinking about and was really missing. And so it was like this for her, that was kind of her realization of these synchronicities. And for me to talk about seeing those kinds of things too was to made her realize this is real. Like this is actually something that I should be paying attention to. And it's not a coincidence,
Oh,
which I
that's
loved. It just made me so happy that to be able to give somebody that
yeah.
validation that what they're seeing actually is support that they're receiving from.
Yeah, definitely. I really feel like you do have a gift. Because I've said this before when I've met with you, like I have a whole new business idea that I'm working on right now because of last time we met. You said something and it clicked and I was like, why am I not doing this? And you're like, that's the only time I've ever seen you light up like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So you have this gift of knowing what to say exactly when somebody needs a message, of or a push, right? So I appreciate that about you. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I don't take that gift lightly. It means a lot to me to be able to give it to people whenever I can. So I'm learning in my older age to not shut my mouth anymore when I think that I need to say
Yeah.
something. I'm going to do it
Yeah.
because it has yet to bite me. I'm sure it will at some point, but I don't care.
Yeah.
If it helps hundreds of others, then the one time I get bitten, okay,
Yeah.
no, it's worth it. Well, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the co-parenting planning guide that we co-authored for just a moment. I believe the process that you and I went through to create it and the end result is something that a lot more people can do themselves, and can create sources of passive income while also helping lots of people at the same time. So I thought it might be helpful if you and I could share a little bit about our process and how you fit it into your schedule, how you made it work with all of the other things you have going on, and maybe why you wanted to do it or why you made it happen with me.
Okay. Well, I think I reached out to you and I said we should do something together because you work with divorcees and so do I. And um, you already had this co-parenting plan in effect, right? And so I just kind of came in and we were working on making it into a class. And then it just was like, you know what, why don't we just make this into like a manual or a book? And so we're combining you talking about the finances and the details of child um,
Child support and the
child
expenses,
support.
yeah.
I can never remember that name. I always want to say child protection service, child support, And then I'm bringing in some of the things that I do with my clients of like Heartmath or emotional balance, because all of that stuff of like, and working with your emotions, letting yourself feel the grief and healing from it is so important, while you're dealing with the stress of all the decisions you have to make when you're separating your family. It's stressful, and so it's important that each individual that's separating needs that emotional support, and knows that they have tools within them to work on their emotional management and to heal themselves, really. Giving them that information is important, because I had that information for myself already when I went through divorce. Like, I was already so well knowledgeable because I was already, helping people with it too. So it was easy for me to do that. And I tried to go to therapy, and I was like, I can just talk to like, I felt like my therapist was actually like, I could actually just do this with my friend. Like, I could just talk and vent to my friend, and she's like a really good already therapist for me. It didn't give me what I needed. Um, so I think for me, it all boils down to your connection to divine source, and your faith, and where divine is leading you. And I feel like, and not everybody's going to connect in that way, but if we can put it in small amounts to those people to see how it feels, how it does help you in life to live that way and to connect that to everyone and to source of all, it can really help you get through a tough time, a stressful time.
This is probably divorce is probably the most difficult time I think that most people go through, especially when they have children. There's
Yeah.
so much guilt and shame and sadness and anger that they're just going through all at the same time while also trying to just go about everyday life as normal.
Yeah.
That really, I think what you added to the guide was some really helpful tools and information to help them kind of cope and strategize ways to get through it effectively. For it was, I think they're valid for themselves and for the children, like to be able to teach children some of these same skills and watch their parents learn resilience and strength and all of this stuff. I thought it was really very helpful, valuable information. And you're right. When we first had the idea to work together, I did say I had this idea of making a co-parenting plan guide, but I was missing all of the like psychology expert information because that's not the background that I come from, and didn't want to speak, without the actual educational background and expertise in those areas. But I think you added an immense amount of value to it. And we did start out by recording videos that we had intended to use as part of the course. And I think we both kind of ran out of steam. We just were struggling to find the time and the energy to put into making these recording videos, which is why eventually I just said, why don't we just make it a book for now, and we'll put it out there. And then if it feels valuable and we both have the time and energy later, we can go back and record videos in a way that supports the book and makes it a full-blown course, or maybe even a coaching program later.
Yeah.
So at least this way we were able to get something out there that's really helpful and useful to people that, even though we didn't have the time, or maybe it wasn't on our top priority list
Hmm.
to keep working on it, we still had done something that we could use to help other people. So
Yeah.
now it's in process of being wrapped up and can be distributed as a book, at least until or if we decide to do something else with it.
Yeah, and I think it's really valuable and different from other resources out there because it's got all of it in one place, instead of looking for the emotional assistance somewhere else. How do I help my emotions? How do I help my kids with their emotions? How do I figure out child support? How do I, talk to my child's other parent in a way that is, going to be cordial? Dealing with all that stuff. We have it all in there. things that I
Yeah,
never would have thought about while I was going through it because I didn't have the capacity to think, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in this situation? I just had to deal with it when it came up. But if I was more prepared for it, it would have been a lot easier experience.
totally. And I keep saying that my own co-parenting experience with my baby daddy has been like incredible market research. I have learned all the not to do's
Yeah.
so that I could figure out exactly how to help other people avoid those things by
Yeah.
putting better things in place up front at the very beginning, mostly from the financial perspective. Um, Although I've certainly learned a lot about co-parenting with somebody who has another partner who then has their opinions about how the children should be raised and all of that as well, that I also learned the hard way that, if I don't want to parent my children the way that they want me to, that I don't have to, that it's just doing something to keep the peace that's not authentic for me and the way that I want to raise children. I don't have to do it, that there may be some conflict, but that I get to choose what's best when the kids are with me. So that's just an example of one of the things
Yeah.
that I learned, that had I had access to the support in the guide before I started co-parenting as a divorced single parent, I probably would have had more tools to figure that out and work through it faster and sooner.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I love that we did this thing together. I think it's really, you're right. It is very comprehensive. It has a lot of helpful information. It doesn't really give a lot of opinions about what we think, what our recommendations are for how to choose which custody schedule, or which child support methodology, or which of the tools that you recommended for coping and healing, that kind of stuff. So if we do decide we're going to continue this as a course or continue it as part of a coaching program, those are the things that I think we would include, is talking more about the ins and outs and pros and
Yeah.
cons of all the things in the guide. But the
Yeah.
guide will be very helpful to people. I think anybody who picks it up who has not completed their separation process can benefit from at least something in there, if not
Definitely.
all of it.
Yes.
So thank you for doing it with me. I really had a lot of fun.
I
Like,
know. I am appreciative of you bringing me into this vision. So thank you.
I need somebody else to be co-working on projects with me to really get motivated to make them happen. I've learned that about myself, and I'm really kind of accepting
Me
that. I
too.
need to be in
Yeah.
partnership.
Yeah. I always have ideas, and this is part of as a manifestor. I have ideas and I start things, but a lot of them I've never finished. I have a teen book that I've been working on for like 5 years.
Well, and
I will
similar
finish
to
it.
the manifester, I'm as a manifesting generator, I have the tendency to start things and let go of them when they're not interesting to me anymore and move
Yeah.
on to something else.
Yeah, you're on to the next. Yeah, because you're doing so much.
Yeah, right. I just, whichever direction the squirrel is running is the one that I'm
Yeah.
following. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Well, so I have one more question that is a question I'm asking all of my guests on this podcast. And that is, what does the title of the podcast, Money to Meaning, mean to you in your interpretation?
I think it comes down to energy, moving what we think of as money as this 3D tangible thing and into the meaning of energy. It's just energy. It's an energy exchange. And also not looking at it as something to dread, but something to celebrate. There is meaning behind the money. And when you receive the money exchange, it's something to feel grateful for, like you said in your post, like moving from just the term money into a meaningful experience of, wow, I get to experience this. I get to get money and I get to give money. It's actually really meaningful if you really think about it, and the energy exchange perception. So I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I really appreciate all of your candor and all that you've shared so openly vulnerably about your situation, your life, and how you've thrived. So it's really inspiring. And I've enjoyed working with you, and I've really loved having you on the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the space to use my manifestor throat. Thank you, Amy.